All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Friday, July 1st, 2022. If you're not done so already, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, comment, etc. Or come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, today here, getting this video out a little bit later than normal, but here we are. So spiders did manage to scratch out a 1% gain here. See on the SPY they're up 1.06%, NASDAQ up just over 60 basis points, Dow up just under 1% as well. So a decent little update across the board. We were a little choppy earlier on. We had a little sell-off after an attempted surge in the morning, and then you can see the light volume just took over, and it was really just kind of a float to the upside. So been following the channel, you know we've been talking about potentially a lower high in here for some type of an ABC kind of pattern up, a zigzag pattern up. That's kind of what we've been expecting here, and it's very possible we put that pivot in yesterday. We got good volume on that pivot yesterday. A lot of that may have had to do with end of quarter stuff. In fact, it definitely had to do with end of quarter stuff. But we got a nice bid today, and we closed above that little pivot high from yesterday. And if we put our trend lines back on, we can see we closed, basically just on this 380 level. If you take a look on the intraday on the weekly, or on intraday of the week, look where they just pinned us all week long. Really, it was that 380 level. We broke through it. Well, rather 382. On the SPX, it was 3,800. So we broke through it essentially, and they just pinned us right to this area. So really kind of just a pin all week long. A lot of option premium burning going on here, but the markets, do have a chance to put in a higher low there. And if we look on the weekly, we did finish red for the week, but you came down into this level 2 weeks ago, didn't quite get there. We were looking for a little bit more downside. We didn't quite get it, but we pierced through this lower trend line, made a divergent low, basically kissed this level. You got to bounce off of it. And then this week we got a little retrace candle, and we closed basically in the upper 50% of this weekly bar. So we'll give it the benefit of the doubt for now. As the volume remains light, next week is going to be a shortened week. Remember, we are off Monday, so we'll have an extra day to rest and recuperate. Hope everybody takes advantage of that, gets out, go to a barbecue, do something, get your eyes off the screen for a little while. But in any case here, I'd say there's a good chance that we put in a pivot low here for a move up. But again, we're going to have to see more. We're going to have to see follow through, like I always say here. That I would have felt a lot better about it had we closed above 381 spot 81 on the SPY. And the same thing on the SPX here. If we had gotten above this red bar high here at 38.38, it would have been a much better look going into the weekend. Although, it's still, had a nice up day, and we'll kind of just leave it at that for now. There is a little bit more neutral to upside right now. There is still a chance that we could come down and, test that 370 level. I would have felt a lot better about there being a more concrete low in place if we had tested 370 maybe earlier in the week and then closed at this level by the end of the week. That would have looked a lot better. But, in any case, there's still a good chance of that low there and a possible zigzag up. One of the reasons for that, and well, before we get into that, we'll take a look at the triple Qs here. So same thing. Again, we did manage to get back above this pivot here, where the Qs have been a lot more choppy than the spiders over the last couple of weeks, because this red bar candle here from 613, we closed above that, but we also got way above it, whereas the spiders here, we got above it and then we went back below, and now we're right on it. And the triple Qs are, they're still above it, but it's just been a bit of a divergence here, and a lot of that has to do with energy. So XLE, the sell-off in XLE is dragging the spiders down and creating a little bit more of a divergence than normal than what we would typically see with the Qs and the spiders. And then we have the Russell here, which did manage to recapture this trend line here, but it did, for what it's worth, it did close below it on a monthly basis yesterday. Now, again, there's some margin for error on this trend line. You could make a case that it could be a little bit lower, a little bit higher, give or take. But we did close below this pivot high. So we did get a monthly close below that, so that is a little bearish. But as we always look at, so what I was going to say a minute ago, what we're always looking at is the semiconductors, what I'm always looking at anyway. And we came down into this trend line again. And we got to bounce off of that. Micron did gap down on earnings, and it had a nice little reversal, though. I like this. It's almost reminiscent of that NVIDIA earnings. Remember, this was the earnings date on NVIDIA. Then it gapped down just ever so slightly and surged. Whereas Micron kind of did the same thing, gapped down. After hours, it got as low as 50. And today, intraday, it got as low as 51.40. but it closed back above this pivot low here. And so that is a little bit of a good sign there for Micron. We've been talking about NVIDIA and AMD though, so take a look here on NVIDIA. This finally got down to this blue trend line here, so that's a previous all-time high. You got into it, did close below it on the weekly, but a lot of the times you can get a pierce here and you can get a reversal. So NVIDIA into really good support. AMD also got into a really good level that I like, right around this 74 handle. So take a look at all these pivots down here, a huge consolidation zone. And, you know, there is a chance maybe we go down and touch that weekly 200, but, you know, AMD coming into a lot of support. And then we talked about the SMH. Take a look at this monster trend line here on the semis here. If we look back at a, let me flip it over here. There we go. So this trend line, let's flip over to a monthly. So going all the way back to 2015, take a look at this trend line that we are into now on the semiconductors, on the SMH here. So lots of good levels coming up here in the semis, and you guys know I always, and then take a look here how it's coinciding with this yellow trend line on the downside. So a lot of levels coming into place here on, you know, these semis, and the semis are a big industry group. They're a leading industry group. And so when I see that happening, definitely tips my antenna up a little bit. But in any case, you know, you guys know the drill. We need follow through. We need the, you know, the bulls to really prove it here. And if they can do that, you know, we can put in some type of a summer rally here. Again, other sectors here that have showed strength, IGV, cloud software. Again, down move, possible W pattern with a little ABC type zigzag pattern. I love how you tested this previous level. So if we flip back again to the weekly, you can see that previous all-time high. That's the pre-pandemic high, by the way. That got tested. We had to put in a little bottoming tail on the weekly. We've, you know, bounced around there. And then this week, we tested it and possibly put in a higher low. So that's not a terrible look there for IGV. XBI we've been looking at. I like this little W bottom, and this is holding a bullish inside bar right now. So biotech finally getting a lift. Dow Transports finally getting a nice day off the low. So even, you know, even though the transports are a weaker sector, one of the weakest sectors actually right now, believe it or not, you do have potential for a little bit of daily higher lows. You do have a daily inside bar. The problem is you're in a downtrend. So we got to respect that downtrend for now, but it does have a bullish inside bar. And again, if this puts in higher lows and the market starts to bid, everything will bid. Rising tide will lift all boats, but transports are a weaker sector, and that does need to be noted. Anyway here, so interest rates moving on here. Nice little fall on rates. We went down to this gap window, put in a nice tail, so they finished nicely off the lows. It's short term, a little oversold, but isn't it funny how you basically went right up here from May 27th to June 14th, and then from June 14th to now, you've basically retraced that whole move. So it's pretty much 2 weeks up and then 2 weeks right back down. You do have that gap fill there. This may get a bounce short term. That's a good little tail candle. So short term, maybe it wants to go up and retest that, you know, 3.2 area, maybe 3.09. Could get in that area and then stall out. But ultimately, I do expect this pivot to break here, and I think yields will go into backing and filling mode. Same thing with the 30-year. So nice little tail candle, but eventually this gap will get filled, and I think you could possibly get down to that 2.6 area at some point in the future. High yield debt here, HYG, another nice little bid. You know, again, coming off of, you know, we told you that 73.50 area was going to be support. It held for a day, then it broke down. We got down to basically 73 bucks, which is that double bottom. And what can you say? It got a little bounce off the lows. We'll leave it at that. HYG up 1% though. But if this does surge again like it did last month, that's going to be good for the market. And that should give the equity markets a lift like it did last time. Home builders here, XHB. Again, nice little ABC pattern starting to form here. And again, these home builders are loving the bonds are bidding now, at least in the short term. In the long term, that will change if bonds continue to bid for the wrong reasons. But for right now, they're getting a little bit of a relief, and it's helping out the home builders here. You see the XHP possibly putting in a higher low. So this can get through that 20 moving average now if it does have that higher low in place. And the same thing with ITB here, which has gotten through that 20 moving average. So nice little surge there on ITB, up 4.5%. That's a big move for ITB. This will have some resistance up in this zone though. It's still a weak sector. You got to respect that. But for now, it can get a bid here. VNQ also with a little bit of a lower high, but you close above that 20 moving average. So again, this can still, you know, next stop would be this 50 MA, which also kind of coincides with that breakdown area around 97. So he's got a lot of work to do, but in the short term, they can get a bid if everything else cooperates, if the market cooperates. XLF here, again, still holding an inside bar. Looks kind of like that transports chart with that lower inside bar here with that test candle yesterday, closing back inside of it and then getting a pop today. But again, lower downtrending on the daily, below all the moving averages. Same thing on the weekly. Below these moving averages now, you're kind of hovering above that 200. But again, in the short term, they can bid up, so definitely respect that. Broker dealers here, same thing. So inside bar there, we'll see if it can make a zigzag pattern to the upside. Crude here. So energy bouncing a little bit. We had that little 1-2 sell off here. And maybe this is putting in a higher low here. So it's tough to say right now. Until this pivot gets taken out, you still have potentially daily higher lows. But you did have a nice sell off. Again, my bias is that we do take this pivot out and eventually we go test lower prices down to 90, 85, and possibly $80. That would be my preferred scenario. But for right now, crude's hanging in there and it's trying to hold up. XLE, basically the same thing. You had a test candle today and a slightly higher low here, but it did get rejected at that 100, so now you're ping-ponging. And if this stays ping-ponging for too long, it could put in a bear flag, possibly even on the weekly. So you only have 2 weeks right now, but if this starts to consolidate here in this range, it's setting up for a move lower. So just be aware of that. XOP, obviously the same thing here, stuck between that 100 and 200, basically the same chart there. And the OIH on the weaker side here, nice little test candle today, potentially a higher low, so we'll see what it does here. Again, very oversold in the short term, so wouldn't be surprised if it has a little snapback move. And then nat gas getting kind of a dead cat bounce today, finished off the highs. We'll see what it does on Tuesday when the markets reopen. It is very oversold in the short term, and this is a very good level here. Pivot high, pivot high. This is your breakout, was never back tested. Take a look here on the weekly. You're testing that 50-week moving average. So we'll see 1, 2, 3 down, 3 black crows. That's kind of usually when you get that pattern, you get some type of a snapback move. So we'll see what nat gas can do next week. But it is very oversold in the short term. But got to respect that volatility there in natural gas. Anyways, dollar index. What can you say? Remains strong. I mean, just look at this chart here. Is it overbought? Yes. Is it extended? Yes. Does it need to pull back? Heck yeah. But it's kind of holding these you got potentially this kind of broadening pattern here on the dollar index. It's trying to hold that area right now. You tested that area essentially a week or two ago and you pulled back off the highs, but already putting in higher low. Now I will say, if and when this does start to sell, it's probably going to waterfall pretty quickly. And it's just, if you take a look at the monthly, this is just what happens when you get this overbought, this extended. So if and when it does correct, it's going to be very sharp. But if it can hold up and break through this, then I told you guys a few weeks ago, 108, 108.50 is kind of where I'm looking for it to go if it does break higher. But for right now, it's overbought, it's extended, but it's in a very strong uptrend, and you got to respect that in the near term. And in any case, gold here. So basically getting down to that double bottom, got a nice bid off of it with good volume. So, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt. You could make a case that it's trying to put in a W pattern, but we need to see some follow through first. My guess is that that's not happening right now, and I'll tell you, mainly because the miners are so weak right here. We had a nice reversal though on GDX today, but miners getting pretty beaten down here in the near term. Now look at the fall, basically $42 to 27 in what, 2.5 months here on the GDX. So miners are weak, and I think that these metals will probably head lower here, especially the base metals and the industrial metals, but I think gold will head lower too over the next, we'll call it like 6 months at least, maybe 6 to 9 months. After that, I think you'll get a really good buying opportunity in gold, but we're not there yet. In any case, it's still holding up even with the strong dollar. It's holding up as an uncertainty play, and it's doing its job as a hedge right now. But I do think that it will head lower at some point here in the near future. In any case, so you did hold this double bottom for now. So we'll see what it does. Really would have to get above, and I showed you this weekly here, you'd really have to get above 1885, 60 on a weekly closing basis to really change anything in my mind. Until then, you still have a bearish inside bar on the weekly. So be careful with gold at the moment. And then silver here. Obviously the same kind of thing. So now closing below that 200-week moving average on a weekly closing basis for the first time since, you got to go all the way back to May 2020. So long time. It's been a long time since you've been below that average. And then here we go on the monthly, only 1 day in, but basically testing that area. So maybe you get a bounce here in the near term. Again, it's short term oversold, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing here from the metals. We'll have to see a little bit more. It did come off the lows, but a big sell-off there in silver. And then platinum, also a nice tail candle. I still think this has to go a little bit lower here on spot platinum, but there's a good area below I like. And then palladium here is trying to hang in here, but really kind of just a choppy consolidation pattern right now. This one will head lower as well. And then copper, another dump today. So we talked about the possible little kind of mini bear flag there. That started to play out. We got all the way down to 355. I still think this heads a little bit lower here, and then there's probably a good buying opportunity, especially given how oversold it is. I would love to see it hit next week. I've already got the levels worked out, so we'll be looking at that soon, but pretty good sell-off there on spot copper. In any case, let's flip over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin here, again, remains weak here. We're doing this video at about 10:30 at Friday night, so market's been closed for a while, and you know, Bitcoin futures are closed, but we're trading into the weekend now, and we're kind of just continuing to roll over. I don't like how you came up here. You tested that 20-day moving average. You rejected it. You know, I really can't find anything good about this chart other than you could make the case that maybe you can put in a higher low here. That's really it. And the other thing is, like I said, I believe yesterday, is that there's so many bears that your positive case is that the boat is so loaded that eventually you're going to get a snapback rally. But this thing can break, though. I mean, this isn't a weak technical position. Even Ether here, you take a look at Ether, you know, a very soft technical position below all moving averages, and again, consolidating above these support levels. So we got to be careful with crypto right now. Really, if I see anything change and we get some type of a bid, then, you know, things will change, and I'll be the first to let you know. But for right now, crypto remains weak, and it's one of the weakest sectors out of all assets right now. So be careful with that and take that, you know, do what you will with that. Anyways, spiders here, there's a good shot that we've put in a higher low. I wouldn't rule out a test of 370 next week, though, but we'll see what we get here. The cycle work I've done says that we should have a pivot, if not already, then by very early next week, or sometime maybe even in the middle of the week next week. We do have a holiday next week, so there's a possibility that it gets pushed back a little bit. But in any case, we'll take it one day at a time. Again, like I always say, don't overload yourself. Don't go too crazy in this market yet until we get some confirmation. But until, you know, if we get that, you know, then maybe we can get a little bit more aggressive with our plays. In any case, come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Take care, and I will talk to you guys all next week.